Welcome back, everybody, to another episode, finally, of the Amateur Experts Podcast. I'm your host, Landon Oliver, here with my new Kentucky resident host, Andrew Scott.
Yes, sir. It's good to be back both here in Kentucky and back on the pod as well, man. It was a long wait. Ready to put a bow on this draft analysis so we can get back to keep rolling to the next sports topic we're going to cover.
Right. Yeah, we if you didn't know, like for the previous episode, if you're listening to this is going to be our part 2 of our NFL draft coverage, where we're going to pick up where we left off from the previous episode. But in between that episode and this episode, Andrew happened to move back to Kentucky from Missouri, so we kind of let him get his life back on track from the pause before we picked everything up. But there is a couple things. I know we're not sponsored yet, but there are a couple of things I want to give a shout out for. So like I said, we're not sponsored, not getting anything from this, but I feel like you guys should know because I think it is really cool. First shout out to Pristine Auction. Dope website, super cool stuff. And I'm just saying that because I scored a T.Y. Hilton and a Darius Leonard autographed jersey. Both of them.
Two separate jerseys.
Two separate jerseys. One. Yeah, they're not combined. It's two separate jerseys for under $100 on an auction the other night. And very fast shipping. Those should actually be in Wednesday, I think, is when they come in.
Yeah, they're quick.
So I'll be able to get those framed. Get them
speaking of,
they're gonna go right here on the wall here.
I got a signed Aaron Donald jersey that I got like a year ago from Pristine Auction. That's just, I haven't had anywhere to put it in the old place. But now that we moved, I got it out the box. It's still in the packaging. But I'm going to have a jersey frame coming in the next few days. So hopefully by the next pod, you'll be able to see it right here behind me. That's courtesy of Pristine Auction as well.
Mine are going to go here. And I've got a couple other jerseys. I know, like, I've actually got a few jerseys that I've actually had signed from like actual meeting the players.
Right.
So I'm hoping to get those put up here too, to go along with the ones out of Pristine Auction. But yeah, if you haven't checked that,
shout out to them for sure, man. That site's incredible.
Yeah. And actually I told a buddy about it the other day because he never heard of it. He's a fellow Colts fan. I messaged him. I was like, man, look what I just scored. He's like, oh, that's awesome. So he went on there. He messaged me yesterday morning. He scored an autographed T.Y. Hilton jersey for $34. So
that's literally a third of the price of what it would cost to go on NFLshop.com and buy T.Y. Hilton's jersey without a signature on it.
Yeah, I would say this Wentz one right behind me cost $103, and it's not autographed. Came straight from the NFL shop.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's a great site. So yeah, you guys go check out Pristine Auction, support them. They're doing some really cool stuff over there. And it's not just sports stuff too. I mean, they have movie memorabilia. They have all kinds of music stuff. Yeah, it's anything you can think of, and it's all either PSA graded stuff, like the card and stuff, or it's actual like witnessed signatures, and it comes with a certificate of authenticity, so you know it's real. Yeah, shout out to them. And then also just a quick shout out to my boy Steve Austin, Broken Skull IPA, the best damn beer in America. Give me a hell yeah. So Broken Skull IPA, you can find it pretty much all around now. It's pretty available. It used to not be available. You used to have to order it, but awesome beer. So anytime I get a chance to shout out Stone Cold on the podcast,
gotta do it.
Yeah, you got to do it. That dude's the GOAT. So
yeah, no doubt.
So yeah, we'll get into our draft coverage now. I just wanted to touch base and maybe open your guys' eyes to certain things that I've actually really been into the last couple of weeks. So So yeah, I mean, you got anything you want to add before we start?
No, just if you clicked on this looking for teams sorted alphabetically anywhere from Arizona Cardinals to Kansas City Chiefs, you'll want to go back to the part 1 of this. We did this alphabetically. We made it from Arizona to Kansas City on episode 1, and then we're going to go from Las Vegas to the end and finally finish this thing up on episode 2. So just a quick, I don't want you guys waste your time if you're looking for a specific team. So part 1 covered those guys. Part 2 is going to be the rest.
Yeah, we will start with the Las Vegas Raiders. And we will end this episode with the Washington football team. So any team alphabetically in between those, that's what you'll get on this episode. If your team, like he said, falls in the other category, you can hit part one of
just still listen to this one, but just after you get done listening to this one, if you want to hear your team's take, just go back to part one.
Yeah, because I mean, there's more than likely there's going to be a team in your division or a rival team that's going to be in here, and maybe you want to see us shit on their draft because you hate your rivals, and so that's why you come here. So we will get started, like I said, with the Las Vegas Raiders. Very interesting draft, very interesting offseason. I don't know if you can even really call it interesting as much as you can call it destructive. They blew up probably the best unit on their team with their offensive line.
Yeah, I would say definitely. Yeah.
And then their first pick, they did address that with Alex Leatherwood, but a lot of people seen that as a reach for him. They thought he could have been available either later on, like maybe a trade back and then grab him. But apparently there were some teams there in the early 20s, not necessarily the Colts, but there were some teams in the early 20s that actually had him rated pretty high on their board as well. So I think in hindsight, he probably wouldn't have been there. And if that's their guy, I mean, hey, obviously their draft record. Yeah, I mean, obviously their draft record is kind of speaking for itself because it has not been very good at all. But I mean, if that's your guy, you got to go get your guy. But yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of that. I think he projects almost better as a guard than he even does as a tackle. And even then, as a left tackle, I think he's going to slide over to that right tackle spot.
Yeah, it'll probably be right tackle. And I mean, for me, the big thing was just I thought going into this there was a clear top three at the tackle position with Penei Sewell and Rashawn Slater, and then Christian Darrisaw, who I believe was still on the board at this pick.
He didn't go until 22 or 22 or 23. I can't remember, but he went to
so that was the thing for me with the pick of why I didn't like it. I don't really know if I hate Leatherwood at right tackle, but I just thought Christian Darrisaw was considerably better. And the Raiders, they never seem to disappoint in the first round. And I say that because I'm not a Raiders fan, and they always seem to disappoint, which never disappoints me. But as a Raiders fan, I would be disappointed with the first round pick. I did really like their second round pick, Trayvon Morrig, the safety out of TCU. They desperately need help in the secondary. I thought that he was the clear-cut best tight end. I thought he was the clear-cut best safety in the draft, and I believe he ended up being the third safety off the board at pick 43. So I thought that was a great pick. And then in terms of like the back end of their draft, I don't know much about guys like Devon Diablo or Tyreek Gillespie, Nate Hobbs, but I do like the fact that they're just trying to throw some darts at the secondary because it's a clear need. Now the safety Devon Diablo, from what I've read, I think that he might end up being more like the hybrid linebacker type, where he might not help the secondary as much. But the other two guys, along with Trayvon Morrig, I do like that they're trying to address the secondary because I thought that was a pretty clear hole. So
and that's only because they've whiffed on their previous draft picks at that position.
So. Right. Yeah, that's still the big problem is you have to hit on these, and Gruden and Mayock have not been very successful from what I can remember as of late. So the big one for me that has always stuck out being a Kentucky football fan is them letting Josh Allen go by and picking a different pass rusher instead. And that one hasn't panned out. So that's one that always sticks with me. But yeah, I mean, first round pick to be determined. We'll see. I mean, it was a shock that at the moment that they picked him, that was the pick. So it was kind of cool to hear hindsight that they might not have been as far off as with other teams as the media thought they were immediately.
I mean, I hate playing this game, but I get why some people do it. You could even flip-flop the first and second round picks and say, like, well, maybe if they took Morrig as their first rounder and Leatherwood as their second rounder at 43, maybe we're talking about this in a different light.
So we would probably like that a little bit more, because I had Morrig around that range, like
Yeah,
that, which is why I love this pick so much. Like I thought he should have been going in like the
15
late
to
teens, early
20. Yeah.
20s, and he ended up going at 43. So, that's part of why I like the pick so much. And yeah, so I mean, to your point, if you flip flop these guys, yeah, I mean, we might be talking about this in a different light. And like you said, if Leatherwood's your guy and that's where you have him, then you might as well take him. But the concerning thing for Raiders fans should be that, their guy in the first round just hasn't really worked out
Panned out,
lately.
yeah.
So, I
Yeah,
mean,
so I mean, we'll see. That team just seems to, they can't really seem to get it together for whatever reason. And I know, they give the Chiefs a run for their money, and then Chiefs fans talk about them like they're a good team, but they're not a good team. Um, so I mean,
no, just
it
for
is what it
whatever
is.
reason, they
It's just
play the Chiefs well.
well, I mean, it's a divisional thing. Like it's like the Jaguars.
Hmm.
The Jaguars are good for one win against the Colts every season, like every year. Like no matter how shitty they are, they will beat the Colts in one of the two games. It's guaranteed. And it's just
Right.
a divisional thing. Like it is what it is. That doesn't mean the Jaguars are a good team. Obviously, they're not. I think the only game they won last year was against the Colts. So, I mean, it's just part of it. But yeah. So we'll see what happens with the Raiders. And now moving on to a divisional opponent of the Raiders. Speaking of staying in that same division, is the Los Angeles Chargers, who I thought absolutely for probably the second or third year in a row, absolutely just murdered their draft, like in a good way.
Right. Yeah, this was probably going to be my favorite draft class that we're going to talk about today. And it
I
starts at
would
the
say,
top.
yeah, I would say Cleveland and then them. I think
Right.
it's just
Yeah,
a 1A, 1B thing.
that's why I said today, because we talked about Cleveland on the last one. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
like as far as the guys we're going to talk about today,
Oh
this is
yeah,
probably
yeah,
my
for
favorite
sure,
one.
for sure.
It starts at the top with the first three picks for me. Really, I thought the first three were home runs. Like Rashawn Slater is a stud. The offensive line has been the main need on this team for a couple of years now, and both
They've
through free
definitely
agency
addressed
and the
that.
draft, they're trying to address that. They've got the franchise quarterback, and now he already had weapons coming in. The defense was in really good shape, so protect your quarterback, and
Yeah,
that's what they're trying to do.
yeah,
And
they
then
lost Hunter Henry, so we'll see how that goes. But
yeah,
even
that's
then,
true. That's true.
but even then, I mean, obviously we know what Keenan Allen is. Like
Hmm.
their weapons are still very good there, and yeah, I mean they even
Mike
added.
Williams is really talented whenever he can stay on the field. And then Josh Palmer, the receiver they added from Tennessee,
Yeah,
his numbers do not match up with his talent, because I mean, we're both Kentucky football fans. We've seen plenty of Tennessee football, and the quarterback play just is not it, for Tennessee. So Josh Palmer, he's better than what his numbers show, and I think he could be an impact player pretty much right away for the Chargers. He's not going to be number one on the team or anything like that, but he's going to make some plays and he's going to pop up on Sundays.
yeah. I
And
mean, if you remember, if you watch college football this year, I mean the guy gave Patrick Surtain, who went to the Broncos in the top 10, he gave him some fits in that Tennessee Alabama game. So,
yeah,
so let's not think that this guy's just a throwaway receiver. I mean, he could be a very very productive guy with good quarterback play.
yeah, yeah. And then Asante Samuel Jr.
Love it.
Yeah. I thought that he could have, like, I would have had no issues with him going in the first round. So for them to get
Absolutely
him at
not.
47, I mean, yeah, they crushed it, man. I love this class. And there's some interesting pieces even after the first three picks, but just how much I like the first three picks, I didn't really even care what happened after that. Like they killed it with those for me.
Yeah, I like the running back they took out of Missouri. I really like that. I think Mark Webb out of Georgia was a really good flyer in the seventh round. I mean, I think that's a really good flyer. Um, there's just and even McKitty, I think, the tight end who he's very athletic. Maybe we know with tight ends generally, the first year they don't do much. Unless your name's Kyle Pitts, because everybody's expecting that guy to be the LeBron James of tight ends.
You're right.
But
Yeah.
and I don't know if anybody can match the hype. Like it wouldn't be surprising. I mean, that's a whole different topic. That's just insane. But yeah, I mean, with Hunter Henry, I mean, I think McKitty is a very interesting prospect, super athletic guy that if developed correctly, and clearly, um, that team has done a very good job at developing prospects because their last few drafts, their only issue that the team has had, I mean, they're legit one of the most talented teams in the NFL.
Hmm.
Uh, unless they needed to draft a new team doctor.
Yeah.
That is their biggest
Every
downfall,
year.
is they cannot stay healthy. And I just want
Yeah.
one season where the Chargers stay healthy, to see what that team can do, because
Yeah.
on paper, they're an extremely talented squad. And, I wasn't a huge fan of Justin Herbert, but the player he was last year was not the player he was in college. So there's no shame, because I know you've kind of beat yourself up multiple times for being wrong on him.
Him and Josh Allen, man, have killed me. Like I completely
Well,
whiffed on both of those
yeah, well, I don't
guys.
even think. I mean, Josh Allen had the tools, in college that, basically we're seeing what happened with Josh Allen if everything fell perfectly. Justin
Yeah.
Herbert's not even the same dude that he was at Oregon. Like that's not even the same, remotely the same player. It's weird. Like it's just crazy to look at now. So yeah, I mean, there's no sense in beating yourself up, because I think everybody but the Chargers were wrong on that pick.
Yeah, that's true.
I know Miami's probably sitting there kicking themselves right now.
Man.
Yeah, because that team with Justin Herbert would be looking pretty nice right about now.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens, but yeah, I love the Chargers draft. I love the Chargers off season in general. I thought they've had a great off season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And now we will move to their neighbor, and I'll just kind of let you take the reins here, and that is the Los Angeles Rams. So a resident Rams fan, go ahead and give us the rundown.
Yeah, I'll try not to go too long. The second pick didn't really catch me too much by surprise, because all I heard this offseason was that the Rams were looking to add speed to the offense. That's something that since the Brandon Cooks trade that they've lagged. They Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp and Van Jefferson are all very talented receivers, but they're all very similar in terms of they're great route runners. They're great with yards after the catch. They've got good hands, but their top end speed is kind of lacking. So the guy, if that was going to be the direction that they went, the guy that I was hoping for was Dwayne Eskridge, who went one pick before them to the Seattle Seahawks. But apparently that isn't who the Rams had there on their board anyway. Tutu Atwell was their guy. McVay called him Deshaun Jackson Jr., who they just brought in this offseason. So, hopefully Tutu and Deshaun Jackson can just like take turns rotating injuries, and one of them can be out there at all times. Because we do need, the Rams do need that deep threat. In the offense. So, if Atwell does hit, it's going to be kind of unheard of with his size, which granted, people made a big deal about like his weight was like 150 or something like that. And then he posted a video like the day after he got drafted of him weighing in at almost 160. So, I mean, there's no telling what his playing weight's going to be, whenever we get to his actual rookie season. But Ernest Jones, I didn't know much about it. Seems like he'd be a good run stuffing linebacker from what I've seen since I've been looking at him since after they drafted. But that one caught me a little bit by surprise. Now, the pick that my favorite pick probably since I've been looking at their draft was Bobby Brown from Texas A&M that they got in the third round. I think just looking at everything he did at Texas A&M, I don't understand why he was on the board at this point. He seems like a steal, and then getting to play next to Aaron Donald. I mean, this guy's he's about to have 4 very productive years, and then another team is going to pay him, and we're going to get a comp pick out of it, which has been essentially the philosophy that Les Snead has been living on for the last several years, because it's well noted that the Rams haven't had a first round pick in like a decade now. It feels like with how much everybody talks about it, but yet consistently we put out the Rams are putting out one of the, they had, by age, they were the youngest team in the league last year without a first round pick for the last several years. That's been accomplished by consistently hitting on second, third, fourth round picks, and even some undrafted free agents. And then paying some of those guys and then letting some of those guys go and getting comp picks. We got the Rams got the max of comp picks this past year from guys like John Johnson and Gerald Everett, guys like that walking that they hit on in the middle rounds. So, I mean, I've kind of just stopped doubting McVay and Snead at this point, because there's been a bunch of picks over the last several years where I wanted them to go to a different direction, and they ended up proving me wrong. And so, I mean, consistently trading away first round picks and getting proven talent for it. And then as long as they keep hitting in the middle rounds, that's something that can work. But if that stops, then then that strategy might not work out as well. And it'll be interesting to see moving forward, because Brad Holmes, the now GM of the Detroit Lions, was given a lot of credit for some of those mid-round picks that they've been hitting on the last few years. So it'll be interesting to see what this draft looks like with him out the door.
Yeah, the Lions, I thought, had a really, really good draft.
I know. I was not surprised at all. That's what you should expect moving forward for the Lions, honestly. I mean, Brad Holmes and a couple of the guys that he brought with him from the Rams front office are very smart football minds that have made the Rams a better team. And they're not gonna be better off not having those guys. Hopefully they can, replace them at a good enough level that the team can keep moving. But yeah, Detroit is going to be drafting well for the near future. So that's kind of what I've got my eye on with this draft, is seeing what this class looks like with some of those guys out the door.
Yeah, really, there's not really too much for me to say. I wasn't a huge fan of this draft. I didn't hate it though. I think, obviously they're not counting on really many of these guys to come in and contribute this year anyway. So I mean, it just kind of is what it is. I think they drafted more on athleticism and just hope that their coaches can continue to develop that athleticism and hit on those picks. The high upside picks.
Yeah, it's Robert Rochelle and Jacob Harris. Both are those exact type of players where they have all the physical tools, and it's just a matter of turning them into a well-rounded football player. I mean, both of those guys are freaks, and those were both fourth-round picks. So, yeah, I mean, we'll see how that goes, but it's exciting though.
Yeah, it's not that I don't like the draft. I just, I mean, I don't hate it, but I don't love it. It just kind of is what it is.
One thing Snead has done is he always seems to draft a year out. Like last year we drafted heavy at the safety position, and because it seemed like I think they kind of could see that John Johnson was headed for a big payday and that they weren't going to be able to afford to do it. And so it looks like John Johnson is leaving a pretty big hole, but we have a couple safeties that played really well in limited time last year as rookies that now are looking for that next step. So that, it's something to where, especially with the Rams, with them not having first round picks and not having guys that they're, depending on to come in day one, it's really hard to see if they're going to have a good draft class or not until year 2, year 3, year 4, which should be, that's how you should look at every draft class, regardless of the team makeup. But, for the Rams, especially specifically, which is how they build their team, it's going to be 2023 before we really know if this was a good class or not, so.
Right. Yeah. And like you said, I think that's any draft class. So now we will move on to the Miami Dolphins, who I thought once again had a really good draft. It seemed like they're building their team the correct way, and that's inside out. But I say that they did have 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, and they kind of went a little bit both ways with each of them. I thought their first 4 picks were awesome. Obviously, they picked Jalen Waddle, Alabama, at a wide receiver, or wide receiver out of Alabama. I should have said, but yeah, I'm a huge fan of that pick. I think at the next level, he's on pace to probably be a stud, just depending on consistent quarterback play. Jalen Phillips, if you've listened to our draft coverage or mock drafts, you know that he was my favorite pass rusher in this class. I was hoping he was going to fall to the Colts. The only big red flag on him is his medical history. The guy's pretty much just 1 concussion away from retiring.
Right.
But I mean, that's the only red flag. If it wasn't for the concussion history and the medicals, then this guy's a slam dunk top 10 pick. Clearly the best pass rusher talent wise to me in this class. Javon Holland, I was a huge fan of them taking him. It was kind of a shock because they did have Morrig still there on the board. But I think he's a really good coverage guy. And, Eichenberg, who in some of the mocks we've talked about, I had the Colts, trading down, maybe taking him in the back end of the first. They got him all the way at 42. And I don't think he's, necessarily is a true left tackle. I think he's going to slide in more of that right tackle. But like I said, if you listen to our previous draft coverage, feel about him. He's not elite at anything, but he's great at everything. He just wins his job. He gets stuff done, and
Right.
that's what that line needs. But yeah, I was a big fan of Miami's draft. I think they're going to be a really good team again this year. It's really just going to, like most teams, it's going to depend on the quarterback.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And then I'm even rounding out their top 5 picks, Hunter Long, the tight end out of Boston College. I like that pick as well because I mean, they have Mike Gesicki, but Gesicki can kind of line up wherever, whereas Hunter Long is more of a true um, inline tight end and a dependable target for Tua, which I think will be important. He's used to being targeted a lot, so I think he'll be a nice safety net. And Jalen Waddle at number 6. Me personally, I liked Devonta Smith as the second receiver off the board, but I almost think just in this situation that Jalen Waddle might be a better fit for the team. Just he gives you a different dynamic than Devontae Parker. And so I think that I didn't hate that pick. I think that Waddle is worthy of that top 6 pick, even though I like Devontae more. I mean, they're just really talented receivers. And then Jalen Phillips, that was a guy that I had kind of from mock draft 1.0 to 3.0. He was probably one of the people that I rose on the most. So yeah, I mean, the first 5 picks that they made in the first 3 rounds, I liked a lot. And this is a team that since Brian Flores has stepped in the door, it just seems like that they're building a winning team through the draft. The way that like you either do it through free agency and big signings and things like that, or you do it through the draft. And it's pretty clear that Flores, at least up to this point, is getting it done. But like you've already said, it really just comes down to Tua and his progression, because if you don't have great quarterback play, the rest of your roster is only going to take you so far. So that's the big thing for this team going, is just how good can Tua really be.
Yeah, so we will move on now to the next team, that is the Minnesota Vikings, who seem to have more of a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde kind of a draft to me, because they would pick one, pick I really liked, and they pick another pick, the next one that I wasn't a huge fan of, but then they'd pick another pick I really liked. So I think overall this is an average class. Obviously trading back and getting Darisaw at the, where they got him, along with some extra, extra ammo to load up as well. I thought that was an awesome move. Big fan of Darisaw. Kellen Mond, we'll see. I mean, he's very much a project for sure, but it is interesting they picked him, where they picked him at there in the 3rd round, and we could very well see kind of a Russell Wilson situation, playing out there with Kirk Cousins. We'll have to see, but I think Mon might take a year or two to develop. But yeah, I mean, he's got some high upside on him.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see here. Wyatt Davis, I thought, was a pretty decent pick as well. Patrick Jones out of Pitt, I liked that one. And even their 6th round pick, Jalen Twyman, I actually thought was a really good pick as well. So, but then, some of their other picks, I wasn't a huge fan of. I was not, um, I was not a big fan of the Bynum pick. I mean, the wide receiver they took out of Iowa, I didn't really know too much about him, but I mean, you're talking about flyers there, like in the late rounds.
Yeah, 5th
You can't
rounds and
really,
stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
you can't really do that. But I think their first pick I really liked. Their second pick is, with Mond, is kind of a wait to see, and then the rest of their draft is just kind of like, well, like, he's got some upside. They kind of reached for him, and he's got some upside. They kind of reached for him. Just kind of goes back and forth there for me.
Yeah. I mean, the big thing for this was being able to trade back from 14 to 23 and still get Darisaw and fill the need that they had at the tackle position was incredible value. And your point to Kellen Mond, it could end up working out perfectly, because Kirk Cousins only has 2 years left on his deal, and if Mond is able to develop behind Cousins, he could possibly step in and they could keep the ball rolling in Minnesota. Um, I don't know if Adam Thielen is long for the team up to that point, but I mean, he's going to be paired with Justin Jefferson. Dalvin Cook will probably still be on the team at that point. So, I mean, there should be some good weapons around him. He's got physical tools and athletic upside, and he played in a pro offense in college. For me personally, I just kind of like throughout his career, I got like Kellen Mond fatigue. So like I just kept waiting for him to break through and be like this college star, and you would see glimpses of it on almost a weekly basis of what he could be if he was more consistent, and you never got to see it in college, which is why he was drafted in the third round. If he would have been able to put more consistency with the physical tools that he has, he would have been picked a lot earlier. So it's easy to see why he landed where he did, but I think for a rookie quarterback, I think he landed in a great spot where, as we know, situation is very important. So I think we could be talking about Kellen Mond as a difference maker in a couple of years. Chaz Serrat, I knew the name, but I wasn't extremely familiar with him at the time they made the pick. But we know that linebacker was a need for Minnesota with the few moves that they have made and will be making. Eric Wilson's gone, and then Anthony Barr's restructure that he had this offseason basically made it to where, they restructured it to make sure he could be a free agent after the 2021 season. So that needs there. And then I love the Wyatt Davis pick. That was a guy I had my eye on for the Rams with the interior lineman help that they needed. And, from what I've read, the only reason he was even available at 86 was because of some health concerns from a 2020 injury. And, if he would have been one of those guys that, like a lot of guys, set out for 2020 and basically 2019 tape was all they had to go off of. And if that would have been the case for Wyatt Davis, I think he would have went earlier. So I thought that was a really good pick in round 3. So yeah, that was my main takeaway. But the fact that they were able to trade back 9 spots and still grab Darrisaw while also getting draft capital was a huge win for me right off the rip.
Yeah. So it kind of seems like we're kind of at the same thing in there. So we will move on now to our next one. That is the New England Patriots. I'm just gonna let you have the floor here because you look like you're really excited to say something. So
I'm just so annoyed that Christian Barmore made it to pick 38 and the Patriots somehow got him. Like that's so annoying. He's a first round talent. He had no business being on the board, and I just hate the Patriots because guys like this just somehow make it to the Patriots, and it's so annoying, man. And he's going to be great. He's absolutely about to kill it. Belichick is going to take his talent and put that even on a bigger scale. And Christian Barmore is going to be one of the best interior defensive players in the league within probably 2 years, with a mix of the talent and the landing spot. And that's not to even talk about, obviously the headline is they took Mac Jones with the 15th pick, and it just, as the first round was progressing, and you kept seeing people come off the board not named Mac Jones, and you saw the Patriots sitting there at the 15. It was just like, yeah, like again, like I'm not even huge on Mac Jones, but
I think at 15 it's a good value.
Yeah, that's a great value at 15. He's shown that in a pro offense. The question, from Alabama to New England is he had plenty of talent, skill position wise around him. In Alabama, I think his pass catchers at Alabama are probably better than the ones in New England, even with the revamp that they had in free agency. So that that's a question. But he's going to be going into a pro offense. He's not Tom Brady. Don't hear what I'm not saying, but very kind of Tom Brady-esque, like coming out of college. Like it's funny seeing some of the similarities.
Is that a game manager reference you're giving?
No, it's like, did you see the picture? I don't even know when in Mac Jones's, like at what point Mac Jones's career the picture was taken, but the shirtless picture.
The pro day?
Yeah, it was so similar to that.
It's gonna be like Mac Jones is gonna be a 3-time Super Bowl champion. It's gonna happen.
Yeah, it wouldn't shock anybody.
At least 3.
It wouldn't shock anybody. Like this to me now is the test of is the hashtag system really that great? Because Mac Jones, we'll see if he.
It's the thing, because that's the thing is they took him at 15, but from all indications, Cam Newton is still.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying year one is the test on if the system is legit. I'm just
we're talking too. Like
Mac Jones
Belichick's in his 70s too. Like we don't know really how long he's gonna he's
No, I'm not giving that old man no breaks. He better come with that system. Better come with it until he retires. If the system ain't good no more, then he needs to pack his bags.
We'll see. We'll see. I think it's
Um,
you know,
but like, it was just funny, man. Like seeing those pictures of Mac Jones and Tom Brady from their the shirtless pro day and stuff like that. Just seeing the similarities from that standpoint, what was really funny to me. But I wasn't a huge Mac Jones fan through the process. But I love the Christian Barmore pick. I like the Ronnie Perkins pick. I think
was gonna say, dude, I love the Ronnie Perkins pick.
with Ramondre, if they want to use him this way, Ramondre Stevenson can basically be LeGarrette Blount for them. If Stevenson comes in with the right work ethic and comes in somewhat in shape,
Yep.
there's been some questions, about if he's going to be in shape and things like that. But if
he was not in
he
shape, at his pro day for
right. So if he can come in shape, he can basically be LeGarrette Blount for this team. And it's easy to see why they would take a running back like that, because they've already had past success with a running back of his build. So, I think that pick's interesting. But
McClone, I think, was a good pick. They always seem to get like, just really talented guys out of Michigan that for whatever reason fall and they haven't really worked out in college, and then they come there and they're productive. And I think that's just going to be another one. I think McGrone, Trey Nixon out of UCF, I thought that he was actually one of my sleeper undrafted free agents that I kind of had my eye on. And of course, naturally, they fucking pick him in the 7th round because it's New England.
Yeah, right. So yeah, it's just annoying, man. The Patriots.
I hope everybody enjoyed last year. That's all I'm going to say on the Patriots.
Yeah, they're going to be a better team next year, without a doubt. But yeah, my whole eye roll that started off whenever you said the Patriots is just looking at the list of players they drafted and seeing Barmore there at pick 38. It's just so annoying. But whatever.
It never fails. Alabama players and New England. They just
Nick Saban to Bill Belichick is a real thing, man.
Yeah, so now we will move on to the New Orleans Saints, obviously losing Drew Brees, having Jameis Winston come in there and back up their starting quarterback, Taysom Hill. It's we'll see. I'm trying to troll because I know we got some big Jameis fans on here. But yeah, I mean, this the only pick that I really liked from it, Peyton Turner, I think at 28, I could kind of see, but I thought
It was just kind of like an upside pick to me.
Yeah,
Like
I
he's got the physical
yeah,
tools.
it's very risky. I mean, I thought there were some mentions of him going in the 1st round, but I thought he was way more of just kind of a 2nd round player. But the one I really did like in the 3rd round, and the guy that I really targeted for the Colts to pick, was Paul Cinedibo out of Stanford. I thought that was a really good selection. And I'm a huge fan of Ndebo. The Landon Young pick, I think he kind of kicks in possibly and plays inside more than he's listed as a tackle. But yeah, outside of that, there just really wasn't too much about this draft class that got me, excited to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I think Pete Werner can be a solid linebacker as well. But look, I'm with you that Adebo was my favorite pick from this draft class. And then, of course, as a Kentucky football fan, I love to see Landon Young go in the 6th round just to see him get drafted. It's good stuff. And I mean, he might not have been the main piece of it, but he was a part of one of the best offensive lines in college football. So I mean, he brings that experience with him to New Orleans, and so I hated to see that go to New Orleans because I hate the Saints, but glad to see Landon Young get some recognition there in the 6th round. So yeah, but no, I agree. I think Adebo was the best pick from this class.
Yeah. So now we will move on to the New York Giants. It seems to be, once again, this was an interesting class. And it was interesting from also, not only from the aspect of the players they chose, but the fact that Gettleman finally traded down not once, but multiple times. And I think that was really interesting. I think that's a really good draft strat. Look, and I don't mean to go on a soapbox here, but to me, outside of those elite players, generally when you're getting, past pick, 15, depending on who falls, generally you're going to have players kind of rated in the same area from picks, 20 to picks 50. 20 to 50. And I think if you're picking anywhere around there, that's the perfect opportunity to, to trade down, get more, dart throws and, possibly hit on some guys.
Yeah, unless you have your guy that's right there.
Right.
I don't think there's any reason not to trade down. For me, what sucked, man, is I was so proud to see Gettleman trade down, and then he picked a receiver that I just, for whatever reason, man, I just really don't like Kadarius Toney that much. If they wanted to go this route of player, to me, they should have taken Rondell Moore. Like, if you want to take somebody right there with the Kadarius Toney skill set, I feel like that they were like just trying to draft Rondell Moore and they forgot that he was available or something. No, but I know Kadarius. I think I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum on how most people felt. I mean, he was constantly mocked in the first round, and I didn't see it. It was just, for me personally, for whatever reason, I'm just not a big Kadarius Toney fan. So I thought it was a smart move, especially apparently Devonta Smith was their guy that they wanted. And then the Eagles traded up to leapfrog them to get Devonta Smith, which, man, to see for the Eagles to leapfrog a division rival to get their guy who was also their rival's guy is just like that's what makes the draft so fun. But I liked that they traded back. I didn't like the player, but I loved the player that they took at number 50, because to me, the clear-cut need on this team was just pure pass rush. Like, their best pass rusher was last year was Leonard Williams, who plays in the interior. Their edge rush was basically non-existent. I think they had like 4 sacks or some shit off the edge last year. So, and I think from just like a pure pass rush first step type of standpoint, I think Ojulari might be the best in this class. He still has, some development that needs to happen to be a better overall player, but just specifically what the Giants defense needed and what Ojulari is great at, I thought that was a home run pick in the second round.
Yeah, obviously, I'm not that huge on Ojulari. But so the Giants class was weird because they addressed the positions, which I think is funny, is we both, on our mock drafts, especially, that Giants fan, because we had them.
Oh yeah, he hated that we
we had them taking a wide receiver and we had them taking a pass rusher.
Yeah.
Their first 2 picks, a wide receiver and a pass rusher. So clearly, we kind of know what we're doing here. But the thing is, so they addressed those positions that I thought they needed to address, but they picked players that I didn't like. And I'm not a huge fan of this draft. I think it could be, if everything works perfectly for them, I think this is an average draft. But I'm not huge on Ojulari. I think that's going to be a bust pick. Kadarius Toney, I mean, maybe they wanted Percy Harvin, without the migraine issues, but I don't think he's as electric as Harvin even was close to being, but he was used in a similar fashion. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. I'm not saying he is Percy Harvin, but I'm just saying they, maybe they want to use him in a similar fashion, but I thought wide receiver was a position that they possibly could have even waited on the second round for. But I mean, I will say this, Daniel Jones, they've got a lot invested in those weapons around him with Galladay, Toney, Saquon coming back, Slayton, Shepard, who's the tight end?
Evan Ingram.
Yeah, Evan Ingram. I mean, say what you want about him as a tight end, but I mean,
he's a talented player, but I mean, that's the one person where Daniel Jones is like, man, come on, can you please catch the ball? Like him and his drops, man. But yeah, but I mean, they have set Daniel Jones up to where I think if he still underperforms this upcoming year, they can feel comfortable thinking that, they might need to move on. Like there won't be a question of, did we give him enough playmakers to set him up for success? It's here.
Yeah, exactly. And they got some ammo with those trade downs, for next season. They've got some ammo to move up should they need to.
Right.
Yeah, that's just kind of where, I mean, I still think that division runs through Washington. So we'll see. But now getting into the other New York team, and that is the New York Jets. This was another one. I actually really like what they're doing this offseason.
Mm-hmm.
As much as I don't like Zach Wilson, I don't think that's a good pick. I think out of all the quarterbacks on here, Zach Wilson is the highest bust potential to me out of all of them. Because he played on a loaded roster that didn't play a good schedule. They didn't have any competition. And the times whenever they did finally have some competition, he did not look very good. And not only that, but he if you listen to our previous thing, we covered this a little bit more in depth, but he made a lot of throws that I thought were really bad throws that he just got away with because the competition level wasn't that great. And he's not
Right.
going to get away with those in the NFL. But I love the Elijah Vera Tucker pick at 14. I love the Elijah Moore pick. I love the Michael Carter pick out of running back in North Carolina. Yeah, no, they did also pick Michael Carter, a cornerback out of Duke as well. But
that's funny.
To me, I thought if Jacksonville would have not got Etienne in round 1 and then would have picked Michael Carter in round 4, I would have loved it. I thought that would have been a great move. I don't think, running backs in the first round.
I don't have a problem with running backs in the back of the first round if your team doesn't have a lot of holes. But teams like the Jags, like they're not one of those teams that fits that description.
Yeah, and if anything, running back was the one, thing. I mean, I know there wasn't much behind James Robinson, but they did sign some guys too. But yeah, I mean, that's the one. You have a guy that literally proves that you don't need to spend a ton of capital on that position.
Yeah, he's a walking.
Yeah, and now I mean, it's pretty interesting. Which I guess technically, they didn't even draft a running back; they drafted a wide receiver because that's what.
Yeah, I don't really buy all that too much, but it is funny.
Dude, it's Urban Meyer. Like it's college gimmicks. Well, like we'll see.
Yeah, it is funny. Some of the headlines that have been coming out.
But yeah, I mean, I really liked all their other picks outside of the Zach Wilson pick. I think if they would have picked Trey Lance or Justin Fields, this probably would have been in my top 2 or 3 drafts of the whole draft class.
Yeah, I mean the whole class, just is setting on Zach Wilson and what he ends up becoming. I was like you; he was my 4th favorite quarterback in this class. We knew that Lawrence was going 1, and my position.
My 5th. I actually like Mac Jones better than I like Zach Wilson.
Oh, okay. All right. He was my 4th. I did have him above Mac Jones still, but yeah, I mean, I would have liked the Jets draft more if they would have grabbed Justin Fields or Trey Lance. But I love the next 3 picks with Elijah Vera Tucker, Elijah Moore, and Michael Carter. I don't think Michael Carter is going to be a 3-down bag by any means, but he doesn't need to be. He showed that in college. He was very effective playing next to Javon Williams, and I think that he's the perfect round 4 running back. Like he's going to outperform his draft position so easily during his rookie contract. Like he will be worth more than where he was drafted at. So I love that pick. And so, yeah, I mean, those 3 picks won me over. But again, it all comes down to Zach Wilson and what he ends up being as a quarterback. Because if he's no good, if he is what me and you think that he is, then this is going to be all for nothing, and they're going to be looking for their quarterback again, in about 2024. So
that seems to be the going rate for top 3 quarterbacks in the
and that's the thing with the NFL right now is it's a what have you done for me lately league now more than ever, and like Zach Wilson's got maybe like 2 years to show that he can do it, and if he doesn't, like you're especially these teams that are in these these big time areas like New York and shit.
That's what I was going to say. We've just talked about the previous. I mean, this is Daniel Jones' 3rd year coming up, and we're talking about if he doesn't perform.
Sam Darnold still had another year left on his rookie deal, and they shipped his ass out. Like, I mean, it's very, very short window. What can you do for me right now? If you can't get it done, we're going to try to find somebody else that can.
And let's not think like that. Some of this stuff is normal because this, for one, there's a reason why these teams stay bad, and that is one of the reasons. I get wanting to move on if you think the pick didn't work. I get that, but
yeah, you shouldn't just dig in because you took a guy at a certain place.
Yeah, but at the same time, I mean, you got to think these quarterbacks that are going at the top like this, unless it's for a trade up like Chicago did, or and even then,
Kansas City with Mahomes.
Kansas City with Mahomes. Those guys literally got traded up for, and they went to a perfect situation. Most of these quarterbacks that are getting drafted early like this, they're going to bad rosters and bad management. And
they're asked to save failing organizations.
And I mean, like it takes more than 1 or 2 years, to turn an organization. Can you imagine if if the Colts did that with Manning, I mean, Manning was 3-13 his
Didn't
first
he?
year.
Didn't he like set the interception record for a
Yeah,
rookie or some
yeah.
shit?
He still holds the rookie interception record, and he was 3-13 his first year.
Yeah,
And
and
could you
that
imagine them?
turned out okay.
And then, well, I mean, like, the next season they were 13-3, and then, but even then, the season after they went 13-3, they missed the playoffs again. In his third year, and and that's where Sam Darnold is right now, where
Yeah.
they just shipped him off.
And
And
look, me
I'm
personally,
not saying
like,
Sam Darnold is Peyton Manning, obviously, but
no,
I'm
but
just
if
saying,
you
like,
look at their last, like their past draft classes, like, have they had a draft class this good the entire time Darnold was there?
no,
Well, like
no,
they've made like
no.
Becton was a great pick,
Yeah,
but
back.
like as far as like several picks in a row, like Vera Tucker, Elijah Moore, Michael Carter, like I mean, like they're luckily for Zach Wilson, it seems like they're doing for Zach Wilson what they should have done for Sam Darnold. So hopefully he will at
That
least be
is
set up for
that is ship
success.
Adam Gase as far away from the area as possible.
Right. Yeah. That was priority number one. The fact that Gase is no longer there, Zach Wilson has
Addition
at
by
least some hope.
subtraction.
Yeah. And Sam Darnold also has some hope because he no longer has to deal with Adam Gase either.
Yeah, now he
So
gets Joe Brady and Matt
yeah,
Nagy.
and Christian McCaffrey. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, good for you. I was a big Darnold fan,
I
so
like
I'm
Darnold.
happy for him, man.
I've got Darnold in my in that 32 team dynasty league, so I was happy we went to Carolina.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but I mean, that what I just said was the big takeaway for the Jets for me was it seems like this new regime in New York is trying to do for Zach Wilson what should have been done for Sam Darnold. So, hopefully they set him up for success and hopefully he does succeed because
Yeah,
just me personally, I think that football is more fun whenever the big city teams like the New York teams are actually good,
yeah,
so.
yeah, definitely. So we'll move on now to the Philadelphia Eagles. Obviously traded away Carson Wentz. Jalen Hurts is there now. And they did actually make some moves. They could possibly have 3 first-round picks, next year. And I thought with what they did, I really liked some of the picks that they made here. Devonta Smith, obviously, I'm a huge fan of that pick for them.
Mm-hmm.
And from all indications, at training camp, the guy has just been, because some teams had their rookie mini camp this last weekend. Colts were one of them. And the Eagles were one of them. And supposedly the dude was just lighting up the rookie mini camp there in Philadelphia.
No
So
doubt. I have no doubt.
yeah. So I'm really excited to see what Devonta Smith is going to do. I'm definitely rooting for him, especially because people have been shitting on him for. I mean, the guy just won the Heisman Trophy.
Man, he's a
One of the
technician.
one of the most productive receivers college has ever seen, and people just want to shit on him because
He's about 15 pounds too light, so
yeah,
he's probably
exactly.
just
I
gonna
mean, yeah, I'm not
suck.
gonna let
Like,
15
what
pounds
the
off. Yeah,
fuck?
Devonta Smith, even as much as I don't like the Eagles, and it's not that I even hate the Eagles team, but there's just this offseason has really soured me on that Eagles fan base, man, because I mean,
Oh, because you got to see the bad end of it because you were,
you,
your
I'm not
team
even
was on
talking.
the other end of the
Yeah,
Wentz trade.
exactly.
So,
Yeah, like, and I'm not even talking about the way they were towards Carson Wentz. I'm talking about the way they were towards like Colts fans. I mean, the Colts couldn't make a post without Eagles fans. It wouldn't even have anything to do with Carson Wentz. Like it would be like, oh, the Colts are helping mental awareness, and like there'd be Eagles fans, and they'd be like, well,
Carson Wentz
your
sucks.
Carson Wentz mental awareness needs help. It's
Yeah,
like, what are you even talking about? Like that,
you,
man.
you know, look.
That's a sad fan base,
that
man.
that that is one of those sports stereotypes that is not very far off from the truth. Man, I've only been to Philly like twice, and I've met some pretty
I've
good
been there
people.
once.
I met some good people, man. But yeah, it is a very passionate fan base, and it is like we talked about how NFL front offices or what have you done for me lately. Boy,
Man,
the Eagles fan base, or what did you do for me yesterday? Like, if Devonta Smith don't come out and have 150 yards and 2 touchdowns in week one, they're gonna be like, man, fuck
this
this
guy's
guy,
killer.
get him out.
What's the way, man? Like, look, too. If there's our Eagles fans that's listening to this, and I know most of y'all are probably good people, but for the bad apples,
Yeah, it's always the
look,
few bad apples
yeah,
that
exactly. I'm not saying that your whole fan base is bad, but
right.
I did catch somebody. I don't know if you know about my boy Giovanni with the Eagles podcast.
Uh-uh.
Oh man, kid is awesome. Yeah, he's on Twitter. I think it's like Giovanni, the Philly podcaster. You know, obviously he's lived a very tough life. He's got a medical condition. His bones
Oh,
are
damn.
brittle. I mean, but most positive human you could ever come across. Super nice kid. Carson Wentz is his favorite player. So when Carson,
Oh,
yeah, when
yeah.
Carson
Okay.
got
I know the kid
traded,
you're talking about.
yeah. So when Carson got traded, obviously, you know, he wanted, now he's rooting for the Colts as well. I mean, he's still a Philly fan first, but
Right.
he roots for the Colts. And man, there were like, he's the one, I think he broke the Wentz jersey news because he was the first one to get the Carson Wentz jersey and put it on
The number 2.
Twitter. Yeah, the number 2. And man, there were some Eagle fans on there talking about like if I see you out, I'm gonna break your kneecaps. Like to this kid. Like the kid's like 11, 12 years old. And
Yeah.
and he's like, but I mean, he's just like the sweetest kid you can ever think of.
Yeah.
It's like, man, like if I ever catch that dude out, if I'm ever in Philly and I can't remember your tag, I'd have to look it up. But if I ever catch you out, I'm breaking your kneecaps. Don't you ever
Yeah.
come for my boy Giovanni like that.
The internet, man, especially during the pandemic, has made people really comfortable
Oh,
with saying whatever they want to say behind these screen
oh yeah,
names and shit.
you
That's
see like what's
crazy.
happening at some of these baseball games now.
Yeah.
Dudes are
Oh,
getting the fucking
yo,
stole on,
that
bro.
Padres fan
Dude, he
rocks that Rocky,
stole
man.
on that dude.
Oh my God, that was so funny.
And the guy said he wasn't going to press charges either. Did you read the story? He said he's not pressing charges because
Yeah,
he said he
apparently.
deserves it.
Yeah, apparently he was acting some type of way in the
Yeah, he's
stands,
talking
and
reckless.
he had what he had coming to him. He got.
Yeah,
I mean,
let
good
that be a
on you.
lesson now that we're opening back up and people are getting out.
Yeah,
Let that be a lesson that
shit ain't
people
sweet.
will throw hands. Like it will happen.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like as far as the Eagles draft class goes, like for them to, I talked about it during the Giants part, for them to leapfrog the Giants, who Devonta Smith was apparently their guy, to leapfrog them, their division rival, and go get that guy. That's my favorite part of the draft is shit like that, man. Like that's so awesome, and I think Devonta Smith is going to absolutely crush it. Landon Dickerson in the second round.
Yeah, from
If
Pittsburgh.
he didn't have the injury concerns, that wouldn't have been a second round pick in the first place. He probably would have been going back into the first round. So if health can play on Philly's side, that's a great pick to help protect Jalen Hurts. And then Kenneth Gatewell in the fifth round, he fell farther than I would have liked, and it's not a completely ideal landing spot as far as touches go, but I think that he could carve out a very specific role which he could shine in, his build and things like that. And just going to Memphis, it just seems like Memphis just pumps out running backs that know how to catch the ball. Like they just, whether it's Tony Pollard, Darrell Henderson, Antonio Gibson, and now Kenneth Gainwell, like if you can't catch the ball, you're not playing running back at Memphis. And Kenneth Gainwell is another guy that I think he is a perfect complement with Miles Sanders. That can fill that role there, the Darren Sproles type of thing. So I like that pick in the fifth round. Similar to Michael Carter, I think that is a great running back investment that late in the draft that will pay. Kenneth Gainwell will give you more production than what the 150th pick in the draft is normally worth. So I like that pick. So
yeah, and then I liked Milton Williams a lot. I was a huge fan of that one. And then I think the Patrick Johnson in the 7th round, I thought that was a really good pick. But Williams was probably my favorite draft pick that they made outside of Devonta Smith. I think that's going to be a steal looking back here in a couple of years. So anything else on the Eagles before we move on?
No, just Devonta Smith is about to absolutely crush it, and it's going to be such a joy to watch.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, well, we'll see what's going to happen with Jalen Hurts because I, you know,
That's the big thing for
that
the
is
Eagles is the 2022 NFL draft, because they are stacked up with the draft capital to move up and get whoever they want if Jalen Hurts doesn't pan out. So I think,
and see, that's
kudos
the
to
thing too,
them.
is it's the 22, which I mean, you never know year out, but from what it's looking like, from some of the stuff that I've actually looked at and everything, the 2022 draft class, if they wanted a quarterback, this was the one to do it, because next year's class is not there.
Yeah, on the surface, it doesn't look near as good as this one.
But I mean,
Yeah.
there's always that one. I mean, nobody saw Zach Wilson
Yeah,
coming.
Zach
Nobody
Wilson wasn't
saw
even projected.
Nobody saw Joe Burrow, coming on. So I mean,
Right.
we'll have to wait and see what happens. But yeah, um, yeah, we'll definitely keep an eye on that for sure. So now moving on to the other um, Philadelphia rival, in-state rival, Pennsylvania, is Pittsburgh. In Pittsburgh, I did not like their draft at all. I was not a huge fan. As much as I like Najee Harris, um, I think they needed a lot more than a running back, especially in the round one. And then even their round two pick, as much as I like, Fryermuth, I, I don't think they needed a tight end there. It's
Yeah.
it is what it is. I think they're they need to rebuild their line.
That's the big thing.
Uh,
Yeah.
they need to work on their defense a little bit more, to replace some of the guys that they lost. Their
Some pass rush
linebacker,
help and
yeah, their
stuff. Yeah.
linebacker room needs some help. Um, but yeah, I mean, I did like the Loudermilk pick there in the 5th round, and I did like the Quincy Roche pick there in round 6. That to me, that was probably the best one they made was the round 6 pick. But all the ones before that, while I do like the players, um, I don't think the value is there for either one of them. Um, like I said, I mean, I guess for fantasy football, I like Najee Harris. But even then,
At least in year one.
yeah, exactly. I mean, but you're kind of splitting hairs there as well because that offensive line looks like it did not improve at all. And in all
Right.
honesty, it probably got worse.
Yeah, the fact that they didn't add somebody, until the 4th round for the offensive line, I think it did get worse, and that was the big thing for me was Najee Harris isn't going to make the offensive line better, and that was the clear. Maybe the offensive lineman that they had graded, there just wasn't one there that made sense for them. Najee Harris seemed like one of the most predictable picks in this draft. Like Najee to the Steelers has been it's just
Yeah,
been
we
a
both had
thing
it.
for a while now. Yeah. It was kind of funny though with Pat Fryermuth. I was actually my father-in-law is a Steelers fan, and on day 2 of the draft, I was sitting at dinner with him, and we were watching the draft coverage a little bit on his phone, and the Steelers pick was approaching, and I said, he was talking about some guys he wanted to see them take in the 2nd round, and I said, Pat Fryermuth, tight end isn't the number one need on y'all's team, but he just feels like a Steelers type of guy. Like he can get down and dirty, but he can catch the ball too. Type of player. I said, that Pat Fryermuth is still on the board, and I don't know, he feels like a Steeler to me. And it wasn't 5 minutes later, their pick scrolled through, and there he was. And so that was kind of funny, just like on the fly, to see that happen like that. But yeah, I mean, like I like Fryermuth the player. I like the fit. I do like I really do believe that I think he fits what the Steelers look for at that position. But yeah,
He's
I'm
definitely going to block better than old Eric Ebron.
oh, and I said that they didn't address the offensive line until the 4th round, but they did address it with their 3rd round pick too. So I mean, we'll see. The 87th pick and the 128th pick is the 2 offensive line picks that they made early on. So we'll see how those work out. But that's the big storyline to me is Big Ben isn't getting any younger, his protection hasn't gotten any better, and that I think that's what the team is gonna end up relying on. I mean, I think Najee Harris is about to get a whole shit ton of touches next year to try to relieve pressure
Yeah, I got
on Big
250
Ben.
plus.
Yeah. Like it wouldn't shock me to see him get 300 touches next year. But the question is, how productive are the touches going to be? Because what kind of room is he going to have to work with? The good news for Big Ben is not only can you hand the ball off to Najee, but he can catch the ball too. So, the Steelers love to use a 3-down back. Mike Tomlin doesn't, for whatever reason, he does not want to use more than one running back, and Najee Harris gives him the ability to get back to doing that. Whereas, I don't think James Conner and Benny Snell and Anthony McFarland, the running back room they had last year, I don't think there was a clear guy there that could give you that 3-down ability. So I mean, the fit for Najee makes sense in that sense, but I thought that I thought it was a slam dunk for them to take an offensive lineman earlier than this. So we'll see.
Yeah. So now moving on now to the San Francisco 49ers. Um, man, I'm so excited. I know this was your worst case scenario. Because this was I believe this was your favorite quarterback prospect. and he goes to Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers, who, let's not forget, were just in the Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo the year before last year, before, the injury bug just completely annihilated that roster. So that roster is going to come back healthy. Outside of Trey Lance, there were a couple picks that I really did like, but there were some that I didn't. Obviously, I'm not a huge fan of the Trey Sermon pick in the third round. I'm just not a huge Trey Sermon fan. But I did like the pick of Elijah Mitchell that they did in the sixth round at running back. Diomedora Lenoir out of Oregon, I was a really big fan of that pick as well. And then obviously Trey Lance, is going to be the headliner here. So let's just go ahead and get into this. Trey Lance, I think it's just going to be a matter of, when this happens. And it could very well happen before the season even starts. You're talking about this guy, very smart, great decision maker, explosive athlete in the running game, live arm. The guy can chuck it 60, 70 yards down the field. Pretty much just the ultimate ball of clay for Kyle Shanahan to mold. And I think we could very honestly be looking in about 2 or 3 years from now as Trey Lance being a top 5 quarterback in this class. I don't mean this class, I mean the NFL. That's how talented this kid is. So I think he's got all the potential in the world to be the best quarterback in the NFL, and he lands in the ultimate position for a quarterback. So I'm sorry, Andrew. I'll let you, take care of this, but the rest of it. But yeah, I'm super excited to see that team this year if they can stay healthy.
I'm so bummed, man. I have to hate Trey Lance for his career now, and I love Trey Lance, and now I've got to hate him because he is a division rival. He just landed with one of the better offensive minds in football, and he is about to have a incredible career, and I'm gonna have to deal with him twice a year for the foreseeable future, and it's just so frustrating, man. Because I love Trey Lance so much in the pre-draft process, and all I wanted was for him not to go to San Francisco. That was it. And like Justin Fields still would have scared me, if he would have landed in San Francisco, but at least it wasn't Trey Lance, who like I've just kind of been connected to. And so this sucks, man, because I think they nailed it. I think it's a home run, like the untapped upside that Trey Lance has with a team that is, there's some defensive pieces, some question marks. They were able to bring back some of their secondary and free agency, but some of it left, and you got some injuries, and who's going to come back? Like, well, there's still some question marks on the team, but man, this offense is loaded with playmakers, and now they've got a quarterback that can just really bring out it's similar to, the 49ers did it in a different way than the Rams, but the 49ers and Rams were really similar, where they had two great offensive play callers with two quarterbacks that just weren't able to, hit that top end potential that the playmakers had. And the Rams said, we're going to go get Stafford to reach that next level that Goff couldn't take us to. And the Niners said, we're going to trade up and go get Trey Lance to take us to that next level that Jimmy Garoppolo just isn't able to take us to. And so, it sucks, man. I'll say I'm in the group of, I don't think Trey Lance needs to sit anymore. Like, I get that he didn't have a lot of college snaps, but like the guy hasn't, he played one game in 2020. Like, I don't think I think reps is what he needs. And so I think he should start sooner rather than later, regardless if Jimmy G's there or not. Trey Lance isn't going to learn anything more just from sitting, in my opinion. I think he is a guy that, even though he might not be the most complete product coming out of college, I think that he just needs to get in there and get reps. So that's what I hope to see from an NFL fan standpoint. I hope to God I don't have to see him all year. From a Rams fan standpoint, I hope he just sets all year and we can at least get 1 year before I have to deal with him. But Aaron Banks was just kind of whatever. I actually did like the Trey Sermon pick. I was a fan. I think I was a little bit higher on Trey Sermon than you were. And it was kind of crazy because the 49ers traded up with the Rams to get that. This 88 was the Rams pick. So kind of interesting there, interdivisional trades you don't really see too often, but if Leslie can trade back in the draft, I think he would trade back with the devil if that meant he got to trade back. So the 49ers isn't far off from that comparison. So I like the Trey Sermon pick. I think he'll do well in that offense, but Elijah Mitchell. I mean, Elijah Mitchell really fits more what they look for, though, because I mean, they just want speed out of the running back position. And Elijah Mitchell has that in bunches. So, Trey Sermon isn't the typical Kyle Shanahan running back, but I do think he could be very, very productive. Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson, they're both still there, but by week 2, who knows if they're even on the field, because they both have their injury concerns. So I think Trey Sermon and Elijah Mitchell both could, like, you could see either one of them being the lead back at a certain point next year. Similar to what we said with the Jets, it all comes down to the quarterback that was taken early on. And I think the 49ers nailed it, and it breaks my heart to say that.
Yeah. I'm super excited as an NFL fan to watch. So now getting into kind of the later part of our teams, we have the Seattle Seahawks. Obviously, they only had 3 picks this draft. I wasn't a huge fan of all of their picks. I did like the Eskridge pick, but I still didn't really understand it from the aspect of where they picked him at. I thought he was much more of like a round 4 kind of a prospect, and they picked him all the way in round 2. I wasn't a huge fan of this draft, but I mean, with only 3 picks, there's not really much, for you to look for in a draft. So I mean, we'll see how this lines out. I did actually like the Stone Forsythe pick. He was a guy that I was kind of targeting for the Colts later on in the draft. And he just happened to go a few picks before us to Seattle. So I did like that pick, but the other 2, I'm not really huge fans of.
Yeah, I mean, with them only having 3 picks and their first pick not coming until the 56th pick in the draft, it's pretty clear that they must have really liked Dwayne Eskridge. And I mentioned whenever we were going through the Rams draft, I mentioned that if the Rams were going to go, with the top end speed receiver type of play, that this was the guy that I wanted. I think he's a little bit more polished than what Tutu Atwell is. But yeah, so I mean, it's, it is what it is. The Seahawks only had 3 picks, and their first pick they used on a receiver whenever they've already got Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf there. I do think that Eskridge does add another very interesting element to that passing offense if he's able to contribute right away. But yeah, I mean, they had a 2nd round pick, a 4th round pick, and a 6th round pick. So it's just like, they expect to move forward with the team that they already had on the field and the guys that they added through free agency. I don't think they're expecting too much out of their 2021 draft class.
Right. Yeah. So now we'll go ahead and just wrap that one up with a bow, and go ahead and punt that one out into the atmosphere. Tampa Bay Buccaneers are up next. This was a draft. It was kind of a weird draft because they went with more, I guess, projections with their first couple picks. But I really did like the Jalen Darden pick.
Yeah, that was my favorite one by far too.
I was a huge fan of that one.
Yeah.
Joe Tryon, I like the player, but I think he's just clearly more of a project. And it's the same thing with Kyle Trask. I mean, we'll see. Obviously, whenever Kyle Trask has 10 years in his career and Brady's 55, he's still his backup. I mean,
he's in his 15th Super Bowl appearance.
Yeah, I mean, it's picking a quarterback when you have Tom Brady just seems to be like I think they could have honestly picked Kyle Trask just to motivate Brady for like another 4 years.
It kind of makes
like the Jimmy G thing.
It kind of makes the whole Green Bay thing even more embarrassing because even though it's Tom Brady who's barely been there and it's clear he's in his 40s, even Tampa Bay was like, hey, they reached out to Tom, reportedly at least they reached out to Tom hey, we're going to take we're looking at taking Kyle Trask in the 2nd round. It's to be your backup. They had the courtesy to do that, whereas Aaron Rodgers found out about the Jordan Love pick a year ago the same way that we did on the internet. So It just to me, the Kyle Trask pick and the reporting that came afterward just kind of puts a brighter light on why Rodgers is so pissed off right now, because like it just I don't know, that was my, like, outside of me loving Jalen Darden as a player, the wide receiver out of North Texas, that was probably like the biggest takeaway for me. And with this draft, the Tampa Bay, they've got arguably the most complete roster in the league. So they were just
them in Cleveland for sure.
Yeah, every pick that they took, it was just like, who's our favorite player on the board right now? Okay, take him. Like, position doesn't matter. And I think that's how you should draft for the most part anyway, because outside of a handful of guys, most of them aren't going to be huge contributors year one anyway. So you should just be taking the guys that you think are the best overall players. And, rather these guys end up being the best players when they were taken. I think to me, that's what it looked like how Tampa approached this draft. And really, I was just kind of sad because I really like Jalen Darden, and I was hoping he would land somewhere where he could really contribute, more immediately. Where, I mean, because I think he is a more athletic, better Scotty Miller for this offense. Like, I think he could play the Scotty Miller role, but in a better way. Right. But they run Antonio Brown back. They've got Godwin. They've got Mike Evans. They do still have Scotty Miller. They've got Tyler Johnson, who I really liked last year, in the draft too, who was a late round receiver. So it's a really crowded wide receiver room. So I hate that for Darden as far as his outlook goes. But I thought it was another smart late round receiver pick that Tampa made. I think they've got the most talented group of pass catchers in the league, from top to bottom. So.
Yeah, I really like what they did, but it's only because they can afford to do it. So now we'll move on now to the Tennessee Titans. Obviously we know about the Farley pick. Clearly talent was not the issue, but the guy, torn ACL in 2017, back surgery 2019, didn't play at all last year, then had another back surgery, right before the draft. Yeah, I think it was late March. The guy clearly is super talented, but I mean, he just cannot stay healthy at all.
Yeah, that's the big thing. Yeah.
So we'll see what happens with that one. I wasn't a huge fan of the Raydunes pick either in round 2. I think, I like the player. I think he's okay. I think I just don't think he has the size for that left tackle spot, but I don't think he's going to play left tackle. I think he'll probably move over to right.
That's where I like him at.
But even then, he's a guy that could possibly even kick inside for a year or two while he still develops his body, because he is a little underweight. My favorite pick out of this draft class was the Elijah Molden pick, round 3. I was a huge fan of him as a safety. I was kind of hoping the Colts would have picked him, but of course, naturally, now we got to play against them, and he can get burnt by Michael Thomas for the next few years. But yeah, I mean, it's that and Rashad Weaver, I thought were my favorite picks. Racey McMath is my favorite name of the whole.
I saw Mike Clay say something about that too.
Yeah, like that's. Oh, did he really?
Yeah, it was funny. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like that's what a name. But outside of that, I just think this was an average class. It's all really, this whole class just comes down to the health of Caleb Farley. Outside of Caleb Farley, I think they just, at best got some average guys that can help rotational pieces. I don't think there was any truly, game-changing guys that they got. But if Caleb Farley's not healthy, then this is another busted draft for the Titans, similar to the one last year and the year before. And if it's healthy, then it could possibly be a home run draft. Because I really do like Caleb Farley as a player, but man, like
he's got a rap sheet as far as injuries goes, man, and that's the only concern. I mean, he instantly comes into the NFL as one of the fastest players in the league, and then he's got the physical tools to be a great corner.
That's what they're projecting, because you're thinking of him as like, yeah, he's one of the fastest players in the league. The last time we saw him reach that speed was in 2019, and the guy's had 2 back surgeries since then.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You're depending on him, returning back to full health.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm not projecting him right. Like I'm not projecting him to run a 4.3 after 2 back surgeries like that. I mean, it's
we'll see, man.
I mean, look, we'll see.
It's the advances in medicine and things like that now, man. Like it's incredible what athletes are able to recover from and work through, now, even just compared to like 5 years ago. You're not even.
No, I'm not saying anything like that, but I mean, like, just the simple fact that he had the initial surgery.
Oh yeah, no, yeah.
He still had to go in March, and like he's still having issues with it.
Very, very concerning. I'm just saying in general, like it's really incredible.
Oh yeah, well, like Achilles injuries used to be like a death sentence.
Right.
That was it. And I think like a year or two ago, there's a new doctor, I can't remember his name, performing Achilles surgeries now on these athletes, and it puts the time frame for 100% recovery between 6 to 9 months with an extremely small incision,
which is unheard of.
Yeah, that's insane. And that's the thing, is like, because I know, the Eric Fisher thing with his Achilles, because the Colts just signed Eric Fisher to come back, and they're talking about him. He did that in the AFC Championship game, and they're talking about him being 100% in like late August, early September, like possibly being ready for week 1.
It's
and
crazy.
That's insane. And everybody's like, oh, that's impossible. Like, his Achilles is trash. Like, once you get an Achilles injury, you can never come back from it. But this surgery has only been around, that for these Achilles that this doctor's doing, has only been around for a year or two. Like, it's literally cutting edge, brand new. And that Achilles injury, he did it for Marlon Mack on our roster. And I believe we took a guy in the second round that tore his Achilles in January also, and he had the same thing, and they're projecting him to be back on the field by early October. So, I mean, the Achilles injury is not a death sentence like it was. And if anything, guys are coming back just as good, if not even better. Because I believe Eric Fisher said that this is the best that he's felt in probably 3 or 4 years, as far as, his Achilles goes. And, I mean, we'll see what happens with that. But I mean, yeah, medicine has just gotten incredible for these athletes, and it's such a cool thing too, because it used to be the ACL used to be the death sentence. Like, player tears his ACL, you might as well retire. And guys don't remember that, like, because I mean, I remember hearing that stuff when I was like in middle school. We're talking about like late 90s, early 2000s. Guys would tear their ACL, and you would be like, well, he had a good career. Nowadays, people tear their ACL, and you're just like, oh, he'll be back in 6 months.
Yes, see you in 7-8 months.
Yeah, I mean, like, like that wasn't a thing until Adrian Peterson, and that was like in 2012, whenever he came back from his in like 6 or 7 months, and then he won MVP. And then after that, everybody was like, oh shit, maybe it's not that big of a deal, because, like you were saying, advances in technology. So this Achilles thing that's been going on now is kind of in the same ballpark as the ACL thing. But yeah, the thing that worries me about him, definitely, I mean, the ACL, that is what it is. He's clearly recovered from that.
It's the back surgeries, man.
Like, because like that's the one thing. I mean, trust me, being in your 30s, and you'll find out soon, dude, you lift something the wrong way, and like, you don't even have to hurt your back. You just tweak your back the wrong way, and you can't fucking walk for like.
Oh man, I'm telling you, I'm 2 months away from 30, and whenever we were moving from Missouri to Kentucky, I must have picked up something wrong or something, man. Whenever we were moving things into the house in Kentucky, and my lower back was out of commission for a good 24 hours. So I mean, but Caleb Farley is obviously much better of a physical specimen than I am. So
and he ain't 30 yet either. So.
Right, yeah, he's still very young. But yeah, the Caleb Farley, the player, is great. I love the Dylan Radune's pick from North Dakota State. I think it'll be at right tackle, but I do think that he has the tools to be a very good offensive lineman in this league. And then Elijah Molden, Des Fitzpatrick, and Rashad Weaver, all 3 of those picks in round 3 and round 4, I thought were all 3 pretty solid picks as well. I didn't. Monty Rice, I guess we'll see. I wasn't as high on him, but I love their other round 3 and round 4 picks, and then Caleb, and then their first 2 picks of the draft I liked a lot as well. So, but this
look, they need a lot of help in the secondary, and Caleb Farley, if healthy, can really improve that secondary. So that's what, for me, that's the big thing from this draft class is, do they get a healthy Caleb Farley or not?
Exactly. Yeah. Like I said, I mean, I really liked Molden. I like the Weaver pick. But I mean, like you said, they need secondary help. I still think they need pass rush help. I am not sold on Bud Dupree given that huge contract.
Yeah, I do still think they need help even outside. I like Bud Dupree a little bit more than you, but even me saying that, I still think they need help as well.
Yeah, so I mean, we'll see what happens with that, but it's going to be an interest. This, like I said, this whole class just depends on the health of Caleb Farley.
Yep.
So now moving on to our final team, and that is the Washington football team, who had another one. They were in my top 5 favorite drafts this year. They picked Jamin Davis going to Kentucky, which if you listen to our mock draft, your boy called. There was a lot of people on the internet like, what? That actually happened? Well, yeah, if you listen here,
you would have known it was a possibility.
Yeah. You heard it first. So the Samuel Cosme pick in round 2, I loved. He's one of the most athletic and physically gifted linemen that's come out of college in probably the last 5-6 years. I really like the Diami Brown pick out of North Carolina, the wide receiver. John Bates, I was a big fan of. Derek Forrest, that guy's an athletic freak. That could be possibly a really good pick as well at safety out of Cincinnati. And I also really like the St. Juste pick as well. I was a big fan of that one. I thought Washington, just every pick they made had considerable upside and decent floors. And it also fit needs, because that's a team outside of probably running back and defensive line. I think that they could use help everywhere else.
So it seemed like this was a team that it seemed like linebacker and offensive line were two kind of obvious needs for them, and lo and behold, their first 2 picks are a linebacker and an offensive tackle. And then the Ryan Fitzpatrick is about to, they might miss the playoffs, whatever, just because Ryan Fitzpatrick just seems to not be able to make the playoffs. But this with Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel coming in, and then now Diami Brown, and then Logan Thomas at tight end, Antonio Gibson out of the backfield being able to carry the ball and catch passes. This offense
and that offensive line. I mean,
with Samuel Cosme coming in, the offensive line is in pretty good shape now. I really think they only have one hole in the offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, because let's not forget, Scherf was an All-Pro not too long ago. So I mean, they have that talent there. Inside.
Yeah. So, I think that they nailed this draft. Obviously, as a Kentucky fan, I love their first round pick. I thought, just me personally, I was trying to put my Kentucky bias aside. I really thought that Jeremiah Owusu-Okoromoa would come off the board before Davis. I'm certainly not mad that he didn't. I'm very happy for Davis and glad to see, that Kentucky defense get some love. But so I love that pick. I was kind of surprised, but obviously you were not. But yeah, that pick, and then the Cosme pick and the Diami Brown pick, I love what Washington's doing, man. They're building, they're building a really talented roster to where, it's obviously Ryan Fitzpatrick is not the long-term answer there at quarterback, but they're building it to where once they do find their franchise quarterback, he's got a very solid roster around him to where, the for me, and unless you've got like a Patrick Mahomes or whoever, the recipe to winning in the NFL is building a strong roster and then finding your franchise quarterback and winning a couple Super Bowls while he's on his rookie contract, and you're not having to pay him $30 million a year, $40 million a year.
I know you said Patrick Mahomes, but that's literally the exact recipe they used.
Yeah, and he's escalated into that.
We've only ever known Patrick Mahomes with all-pro rosters. We don't. I mean, as great as he is,
Seattle did the same thing with Russ.
Yeah, exactly. And you see what happened with Russ.
That's the way to do it, man.
Russell Wilson is, the guy hasn't won anything of note.
Yeah, quarterback is the most important position on your team. But if you have to pay that quarterback to where you can't pay other positions, it hurts your chances of winning. So the perfect storm in the NFL.
You can't win with them. You can't win without them.
Yeah, the perfect storm in the NFL is build a very strong roster. Go find your franchise quarterback on a rookie deal and then get it done before you have to pay the guy. And, and to me, I think that's the most sound, way to win a championship. And Washington is Washington and Cleveland, which granted Cleveland, they hope they have their quarterback. But if Baker doesn't work out, after this year, like if he isn't the answer, if they can find their, Washington, Cleveland, these are teams that have really
as well.
If
Carson Wentz doesn't work out, it's the same boat.
Yeah, same thing. That these are teams that are building really, really strong rosters to where all they need is just to be able to plug in the right quarterback. So, I thought it was a very strong draft again for Washington, and it's the one thing about Washington is that Fitz isn't the long-term answer, but there's also not really a long-term answer on that roster unless you believe the hype that old boy in the playoffs last year Drew. That's like Washington has a good roster. I think that they could possibly win the division again next year, but I don't think
they're the favorites to win the division just because their roster is so much better and all the other rosters are not good.
This is the difference that quarterback can make, though, because I'm tempted to still pick Dallas because they have Dak there in place, which we don't, who knows what
I've seen what they've done with a healthy Dak. Dak was healthy and they were still getting.
They look pretty decent the first 4.5 games last year, but
what were their record in those games?
Well, they had to play the vaunted Los Angeles Rams week 1, so you can't blame them for getting off to a slow start last year. But no, I think the NFC East. I think the NFC East will probably still be the NFC least next year, but I don't think it'll be as bad as it was this year.
It's possible to be that bad.
That's true. But I think the Eagles got better. I think the Giants kind of got better. Dallas, hopefully we won't have to watch Andy Dalton and the other string of backup quarterbacks that we had last year. So I think the division will be better, and Washington's going to be, right up at the top of it, competing to win that division again. Hopefully at least the NFC East battle will be a little bit more interesting and a little bit less. Who cares?
As long as you cannot send a team to the playoffs with a losing record.
Right. Yeah.
It's another Tom Brady. How did he do it? Tom Brady's got to go on the road for his first NFC playoff game. Oh,
the funny thing about
a losing record, and they played him they played him the best out of all the other teams.
I was gonna say, of all the games, that was the one where Tom kind of had to bail the defense out. The defense really didn't play that well against Washington in that first playoff game, and it was it was kind of funny, yeah. That of all the people that they had to face Drew Brees, they had to face Aaron Rodgers, and it was Taylor Heineke that Brady had to bail the defense out against. So the NFL's weird, man. It's a weird league.
It is. It's definitely, to me, it's the hardest championship to win.
Professional wise, I would agree. I still think the NCAA tournament of everything is hardest, but professional wise, the World Series or the NBA Finals, the one and done nature of the NFL playoffs. I think professional wise, it's easily the hardest championship to win.
March Madness, it's the hardest to win an NCAA title.
But if you're looking at just professional sports, it's tough to pick anybody other than the NFL for the toughest championship to win. So I don't know. NFL's weird, man, but it's what makes it so fun.
Yeah, it is, man. I'm so ready for football season.
We're sitting here in May still talking about football. That's how you know that the football's fun.
It'll never end. We do also, we have NBA playoffs coming up. Today, I believe, was the last
of the regular season. Mm-hmm.
So our next podcast, kind of be on the lookout for our NBA playoff preview, which will give you our predictions for MVPs, Defensive Player of the Year, stuff like that as well in the NBA season. And then I know Drew's going on vacation as well, so he's going to have a good vacation, but we're going to pre-record the episode, so we will not miss any more time from that one. So just be
right back on schedule.
Yep, everything's back on schedule. You'll have your daily podcast every Tuesday morning, and then maybe even a surprise podcast. Who knows? Maybe later on in the week, depending on how the summer goes. Now that everything's kind of slowing down during the summer,
man. But the things are slowing down. But at the same time, we've got, like you mentioned, we got the NBA playoffs. We've got
baseball.
we've got a decent amount of baseball content. We're almost exactly 2 months away from the All-Star break for baseball, and a little bit less than that from the trade deadline. So like we got plenty of baseball stuff we can talk about. Now that the NFL draft's over, we've got dynasty fantasy football content we can talk about. So, while it may appear to be the slow time of the year, there's still more than enough stuff that we get to talk about, man. So it's exciting.
Like I said too, I mean, we can talk about more than just sports on here too, as much as that's what we do talk about.
We spent like 30 minutes talking about cooking before we hit record, so I mean,
exactly. I mean, like I said, we got bourbon back there. We can always do that. So so we'll just go ahead and end it there. Thank you guys so much for listening to part 2 of our NFL draft preview. Like I said, if you're curious to where your team is, go check out part 1 if you are between the A's and the K's. And then just once again, shout out Pristine Auction. Go check those guys out for some awesome prices on autographed memorabilia. Shout out Broken Skull IPA. And like you said, we were talking about cooking before this. Shout out to Every Plate. If anybody's interested in trying a really cheap, really good meal delivery service, cooking, they'll ship you your groceries to give you just what you need to make some really good meals for a whole week. We get 4 meals delivered here at the house. It's like it's under $50 for 4 really good home cooked meals. I've got a code in case anybody's interested. Just hit me up, and I can get you a week's worth for like $8. So yeah, you check that out. And that's all the plugging I'm going to do. I'll let you do your closing.
Yeah, I'm gonna plug us. So of course, if you made it this far, the NFL of all the podcasts we've done, it seems like anything NFL draft related has always run longer than what we expected. But we finally made it to the end. So if you made it to the end with us, shout out to you for making it this far. Go hit us up on Apple, Spotify, wherever you find your podcast. If you want to watch us talk, you can always go hit up the YouTube. We post everything there as well, where we do these over Zoom. And so you can see our reactions and not just hear them. We both of us can tend to be a little bit more visual sometimes in some of our reactions. So it makes the listening experience a little bit better. So head over to YouTube, make sure to like the video you're listening to. That helps us go a long way with the YouTube algorithms. And then of course, subscribe to the channel. And then whenever you subscribe to the channel, make sure you hit that little bell that pops up so that you can get notified of whenever we upload new videos. Our plan is at least once a week to be uploading new content. So go over there, subscribe, hit the bell, and make sure that you're notified as soon as we pop these things off. So that's about it. Now it's time to we finally, after 3 mock drafts and now 2 review processes, we finally have the NFL draft 2021 behind us.
Yep, and definitely can't wait for all of these players to prove us completely wrong.
Right. That's the big thing, is that all these players over the next few years are going to show that we are absolutely amateur experts.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. Check out the podcast on our previous episodes for any other additional content, and we will see you guys next week.